Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to Step Back Tonight for today, June 29th, 2021. I'm your host, Tristan. Hi. I run Tristan Won't Shut Up and Step Back. Tristan Won't Shut Up is kind of an archive project at this point, but hopefully I'll get to it at some point, but release schedule for Step Back is relentless. Yeah, my name's Tristan. I stream twice a week on Mondays and Tuesdays from 12 till 2 with Mia Mulder called the Monday Discourse, and Tuesdays from 7 to 9 with just me, which is Step Back Tonight. That's me. Hi. Hello. I go by he, him pronouns. You can find my work at stepbackhistory.com. And if you want to support my work, you can go to patreon.com/stepbackhistory, or if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can support my work for free, or at least at no extra cost. It's baked into your Amazon Prime subscription. That you get one free Twitch subscription per month. And if you choose me, I get a little kickback at no extra cost to you. And if you don't use it on somebody, Amazon just gets to keep your money. So I'd recommend you use it for somebody. Yeah. As for content that's coming down the pike, as you guys probably know, I had a new video come out earlier today, just this morning. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a very fun video to make, and yeah, hope you're enjoying it. Then I also have my next video. I haven't started yet. I'm starting it tomorrow, but it's going to be about climate refugees and fortress politics. So we'll see where that goes. Yeah. But today was... I didn't get started today because I was working on positive leftist news. So, yeah, moving along. If you want to submit questions to the stream, that, either will be in a future stream or in this stream. We don't have a lot of questions for this stream in my collection, so it's likely that we'll get to it tonight, so... but yeah, don't worry, be happy. And so that's a link you can go to submit questions for the stream. I am going to be reading the chat, and this Step Back Tonight's a little bit more conversational than the Monday Discourse is with the chat. So, if you want to roll the dice on getting your question answered, you can ask it in the chat. But if you want to, if you're patient and you're concerned about making sure that it gets answered, at least if I don't get too backed up or if you don't spam me with questions, you can submit it at that link that I put in the chat, and they expire after a month, and I keep on top of them. And yeah, if there's anybody who is new, if this is your first time in here, please make yourself known in the chat. I would be very grateful if you make yourself known in the chat. Everybody in the chat, we have a very active and vibrant community, so they'd be welcome to have you. And yeah, I just want to know if there's anybody who it's their first time here tonight. Hi everyone, hope you're all doing good. Yeah, go Pingu Pongo. That's a fun thing to say. As you can see, my brain is doing wonders tonight. I release a video and my brain just wants to turn off forever, but I just need to make another video in 2 weeks. So it's like, oh, okay, better get to work. But how's everybody doing tonight? What do I think about Australia having COVID issues? I mean, it seems like they're handling it pretty well. So that's good. But, I mean, this is like Australia having sort of like it's having like a 2-week lockdown or something like that, where it's making sure that everyone stays home and reinstituting its mask mandate. Like, we're probably going to be seeing things like that throughout, We're going to be seeing things like that for a long time. I don't know how bad it is. I think from what I know, or from what I've read, Australia, because they managed COVID so well with the they managed COVID so well just by wearing their masks and containing community outbreak and stuff like that with their lockdown and everything like that, that things got back to normal a while ago. But what happened was essentially when vaccines started coming around, Australia sort of has a lower urgency on it. And so the vaccination rate in Australia is not like super high. And then this Delta variant comes through where it's much more virulent, which means it spreads a lot easier. And essentially, I guess it got to Australia. And Australia is doing another lockdown. But the thing is that the Delta variant's so... I think there's one case where somebody spread the Delta variant with like being in their space for like a minute. So it is very easy to contract from somebody. And the only real defense against that is the vaccines that we have. And even them, they're not like the best. So really it's like a combination of high vaccination and the sort of, the same sort of like masks and lockdown measures that we were doing before. So I think that Australia is right now still trying to contain it while it's small. But yeah. But basically the issue is I think that because Australia contained COVID, they're so early that they're a bit behind on the vaccine levels. I don't know. I don't even know what Australia's vaccination program looks like. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay. Australia has only fully vaccinated 4.8% of its population. That's not good. And it's only given out 7.37 billion doses. So yeah, only like 24% of Australians have one dose. While like, we're getting, like in Canada, we're starting to reopen because we've got like 70%. So. Yeah. So I think in many ways, you're saying the lockdown is never going to end. No, it's just that it's going to be, I think that it depends upon how fast the international community gets. Like, we have to vaccinate everybody on Earth in order to kill the disease. And right now we're doing this extreme vaccine nationalism where where politicians who are worried about elections are making sure that their own people are vaccinated before other countries. And so what that means is you end up with things like the Delta variant, which is because, India, like we weren't able, we decided to not bother vaccinating India. And now the Indians, were massively struggling a few months ago. And, yeah, and that's, every single time one of these viruses replicates, there's a chance of making a new mutation. It's an extraordinarily low chance, but it happens a lot. And until we vaccinate the world, we're constantly going to be having new variants that are going to either be more virulent or more deadly or something like that. And so my guess in the future is that as we start to vaccinate more and more of the population, we're probably going to see more and more variants. And the only other thing I can think of that'll be a big issue is that if we end up with a variant that is significantly vaccine resistant. But let's just pray that doesn't happen. But things like what's happening in Australia, where you have like regional intense lockdowns to stamp out variants making it into a country, I think are going to be pretty common. They might only be for like a month or two, but yeah. Until the world's taken care of, it's going to be what it is. Yeah. Hey Tristan, I really love your recent video. The concise line of apocalypticist ideation you drew so organized and phrased. I talk with this shit all the time, but I feel some of what I might say might be a bit impenetrable to people who don't know the lingo, but I'll be directing folks to your series for sure when they need intro to white power in America and why I say this stuff is just 80s stuff all over again, but like worse because it's mainstream politically. Well, thank you. Much appreciated. Yeah, I'm glad that you're enjoying the series, and I'm glad that someone who, knows what they're talking about is enjoying the series. That means quite a bit. I'm almost done that series. And I have been nothing but absolutely overjoyed with everyone's response to it. That's why I've, gotten myself. It's going to be 9 episodes. It's going to be a 9-part series by the end. 10 if you count the episode on the militarization of the police, which is sort of like a appendix, if you think about it. But yeah. Some people in the chat are talking about Australia's having a lot of anti-vaxxers. Well, a lot of places have a lot of anti-vaxxers. I just imagine that in this current situation that Australia might need to ramp up its vaccine program. But my guess is if you the thing is, I think what's motivating a lot of people like in Canada and the US to get vaccinated so quickly is essentially we didn't do the COVID zero plan that Australia did. And so to us, our vaccine is like our pathway back to a normal life, while Australia has been normal for like months now, and it's now like coming back. And so like it's harder for somebody to to sign up for something like that, I guess. Your White Power series is definitely showing that all unprecedented times aren't new, and that just haven't been discussed a whole lot. Yeah, that's a big thing. Basically, the whole thing is that the whole how do I put this through? Yeah, there's this thing in history that I always find interesting, which is basically everything that you think is immortal is actually a lot younger than you think it is, and everything that you think is new is actually a lot older than you think it is. I find that over and over again. So that's the way that I would mention that, I guess. Remember when Voyager episode when they went back to the 90s and 2 crewmates got captured by militia members? Yes, I do remember that. See, the thing is that like the militia movement did get a lot of people's eyeballs on it because of things like Ruby Ridge and Oklahoma City. And it was really Oklahoma City was the big one, which is going to be the topic of the next episode in that series. I don't know when I'm going to make it. Really depends upon my $5 patrons, but Oklahoma City is big. Is the largest terrorist attack in U.S. history before 9/11, and it was done by a militia member. But like, there's a lot of like, trying to deny that there is a link between the White Power movement and the militia movement. Even though there's like tons of documentary evidence that it's the same people doing the same thing for the same reasons. And that the mainstreaming of the militia movement in the early 90s spread a lot of right-wing conspiracy theories into the mainstream right, which carried forward sort of a lot of the ways that that the conspiracist right, like how especially American conservatives are so conspiratorially thinking, and this is sort of where that comes from. And yeah, I what's it called? I've actually been to Oklahoma City, and I've actually seen the memorial they have at the federal building there, so I am well aware of how scary it is. Yeah. And then after that, I have to talk about the fact that after the Oklahoma City bombing, a lot of people turned on the militias, and the interest in the militias died down. But there was still like a dedicated conspiracist group of people that were very savvy on the internet, and they were around, but they were sort of in very reduced numbers until Barack Obama got elected, and it started to come back. So, yeah. You have a whole video about how the media never mentions that Timothy McVeigh and Columbine were literal Nazis. Yeah, like people don't like they didn't they went so far to not mention that. Like Timothy McVeigh had copies of the Turner Diaries, and like his entire philosophy was about like race and race war and such. Same with the Columbine shooters. Yeah, the Columbine shooters were into like far right like racist shit, and yet that doesn't get talked about. Yeah. He was blamed on hippies. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Didn't Charles wasn't Charlie Manson's entire thing that he thought a race war was coming? Oh boy, I didn't even talk about Charles Manson's role in like the American far right because I don't even know where to begin with something like that. But I mean, dude had a swastika tattooed on his forehead, so there was something. Kevin Logan identifies as a socialist now. Oh, I'm not gonna get into drama. No, I'm not. Oh man. What do you think of Sasha's story in After the Revolution? I'm guessing it's based on like French Muslim girls who ran away to join ISIS. Sounds like it. I'm a few chapters behind on After the Revolution now, but the last episode with Sasha was basically when she got smuggled in a box or something, and I don't know what happened after that. But yeah, fucking the novel is amazing. I'm really enjoying myself. But yeah, it's definitely like almost perfectly Sasha's story is about like the people who became radicalized into ISIS and ran away from like Western countries to go fight for ISIS. It's like it's not even like subtle. James Mason is a big fan of Masons. Charles Manson was a pretty big following in modern accelerationist neo-Nazi spheres. Interesting. Wouldn't surprise me. Hi, you asked if anyone was new here. I am. I thought there'd been a few of your videos and watched a lot of other BreadTube/KLM Mopens wannabe assassinators. That's fun. Well, welcome aboard, Gaz. I hope. I hope that you know Siege, right? He praises Manson. I do know Siege. Yes, it's a book. It's like what's it called? It's basically like a kind of like white power, like but also it's a white power, but also prepper kind of magazine, if I remember correctly. So I think it's no longer in print, but I think that the person who made it is still making stuff with it or something. I don't know. I'm not. There's another guy, Dan Harper, who keeps up with like the modern day version of the far right. Like I've been doing the history. I interviewed him for the last video in the series, and I'm gonna have to re-listen to the interview we did so I can put together the research for the last episode of that series. Decentralized terror. Yep. What's it called? The stochastic, or the whole stochastic terrorism thing is exactly the kind of thing that the white power movement was trying to do, to have a decentralized movement that was, instead of being unified by actual organization, they were unified by either informal networks or by just reading the same literature. And because they read the same literature and have the same ideas, that they would come to the same conclusions and commit the same types of actions without having to communicate. And that was essentially like how the white power movement functioned. It's how they managed to keep themselves from being considered a like larger movement. But and you know, it's a whole thing. But yeah, it's been their policy since about 1980, I believe, is when they had the big meeting in Idaho where they decided that they were going to do this sort of like informal or just like decentralized insurgency. Do you guys like drinking herbal tea? I got some ginger, lemon, and chamomile. It's tight. That does sound good. Let's see. I remember reading a New York Times article that was written after the 2016 election saying that we live in a reactionary age. What in the rise of jihadism and white supremacy do you agree? I mean, it depends upon how you look at it, because I would say that, you know, America always has been reactionary. Like, in many ways, like what led to Donald Trump's election was a movement that, like, you could make a cogent argument that what was going on with Donald Trump's election is something that had been in the process for the better part of a decade. And also you could say that it was like, you know, the last 40 years. And you could also say that it is as old as America itself. But there's a really good book, I think, called Backlash. I want to say it's called. I don't know. I haven't read it. But the thesis of the book is that essentially America goes through these sort of cultural phases where there's a lot of social progress made, followed up by periods of backlash by the dominant society, and these sort of conservative periods where a lot of the gains made in the era before are fought against. And like an example would be like the 1980s was a backlash against the progress made in the 1950s through the 70s. And that like, or which like, you know, because like the 80s also was like a movement that had been building since the 1960s. I don't think it's as simple and cut and dry as that. And I don't even know if the book goes as that cut and dry. But there is something kind of dialectical about the idea that every time you make social progress, you're creating reactionaries who are against it until they reach a breaking point and they become the dominant ideology, and then you're the one that's trying to fight for change again. And that there's sort of like a cycle in that. I don't know how I don't think you synthesize those two movements, obviously, but yeah. So there's Vivian, there's actually a Nazi group called the Base, which is the literal English translation of Al Qaeda. So yeah, there is definitely some like, you know, despite the fact that there's so much Islamophobia and anti-Christian stuff in like radical Islamist groups, that there is sort of like a common cause in them being basically fascists that groups on each other. So, yeah. Something like Trump was destined to happen from Barry Goldwater on. Is that too hyperbolic? I mean, no. You could argue like, see, the thing is, this is how history works. You can draw borders in all sorts of places and all these things. Like, if I really wanted to write like a whole fucking book about this, I could say that this is as old as freaking Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton fighting each other. Or if you really wanted to. But you could, but like, you know, where you put your inciting incident in the story is more about what kind of story you're trying to say. And Barry Goldwater, I mean, Barry Goldwater was also the result of a concerted movement to get more conservatives into the Republican Party after essentially the 1930s, where the Democratic Party established itself as the firmly like pro-labor party, you know? So, those were the days. But yeah, like the Goldwater presidency candidacy was basically like a long building like activist attempt to realign the Republican Party under conservative, like much more conservative focus after as a backlash to the New Deal. So like Barry Goldwater, like if you think about the people who Barry Goldwater came was responding to, it was those kinds of people. They were trying to get what were kind of called Rockefeller Republicans. They were trying to get them marginalized and out of the party, and like those were like sort of like, well, they were like the Rockefeller Republicans, so they were like they were reasonably socially progressive. They were even reasonably pro-labor. They just were sort of like a remnant of when the Democrats and Republicans were like a little bit more of a regional party, and that the Republicans were more of like a northern party and the Democrats were more of a southern party. It's why you had a time where like, yeah, the Republican Party was aligning to be more conservative, but it still had like a significant liberal base, especially in the American Northwest or Northeast. And then you had the Democratic Party, which was doing all of this like socially progressive stuff on race, despite the fact that it had a solidly conservative and racist base in the South, based on the fact that the parties used to be regional, more regional. And then in the 1960s was sort of when those groups started to, like, basically the 60s was when the Republicans and Democrats started moving away from like kind of like regional interest-based politics. You know, it's just sort of like schmoozing your way through enough constituents that you can put together a governing coalition. And instead, it moved to something akin to like an ideological divide between a liberal Republic or a liberal Democratic Party and a conservative Republican Party. And then some people would say that began in like 1912 with the that election. So it's complex. Was Goldwater economically right wing, or like Nixon would be? He would be a socially conservative Keynesian by today's standards. He was a lot more economically conservative than Richard Nixon was, for sure. He was much more of an anti-New Deal guy. And actually, when it came to his social policies, he was a little bit more lax. He was testing more of those kind of like libertarian Republican arguments. This is why there's still like occasionally like people who call themselves Goldwater Republicans who are sort of like Ron Paul-y types. But in many ways, Goldwater was trying to channel reaction against the New Deal. But he did kind of fail to channel reaction against the civil rights movement, and that's why he lost in '64. But, yeah. But the thing is that one of the people who was really invested in Barry Goldwater's campaign was Ronald Reagan. And so Ronald Reagan really was like, let's do Barry Goldwater, but again. And Ronald Reagan won, so you could, like, there's like a through line you can say from Barry Goldwater to Donald Trump. There's a through line you can say from Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump. Then there's like the shortest through line I could probably say is like Gamergate to Donald Trump. But like, this is how history works, right? Nothing ever starts and nothing ever ends. So when you want to create a piece of media about history, you have to put a beginning and an end somewhere. And no matter what you do, it's going to be incomplete in some capacity. And this is the problem. This is like the fundamental issue of the discipline. Because otherwise, every book would have to start with the Big Bang. Right? Do I have a favorite anarchist theory book? Which one is it if I do? I mean, it depends upon what your definition of theory is, but The Conquest of Bread has a lot of the sort of theoretical basics of anarchist theory, and that is probably my favorite. But also, it's kind of important to know that like anarchism is sort of, and this is a part that a lot of people who aren't anarchists hate about anarchists, and that is, anarchism is very much an anti-theory ideology. Anarchism isn't really interested in a lot of like the the theory about the optimal way to run things. This is why when anybody asks like, well, how would anarchism work? And it's like, well, you don't really have an answer for that. Anarchism will work however it works wherever it is. It's very much based on what actually, what would actually work in the situation that you're in. This is why, like, an anarchist society in like in freaking Timbuktu will look very different from one in like Iqaluit or whatever. It's based very much on regional needs, cultural diversity, and all sorts of stuff. And so anarchism, if there's one thing at the core of its like theoretical basis, it's radical practicality. Really not worrying too much about like concerns about the absolute optimal way to do things, and instead just fucking doing shit. Hey, John Barlich, thank you for the $5 super chat. Much appreciated. Did you hear that the new incumbent mayor of Buffalo is doing a write-in campaign to stop the progressive newcomer? Yeah. I'll tell you that what's it called? What's her name? Something India. Her winning the Buffalo election, the first socialist, she would be the first socialist mayor in like 99 years or something crazy like that. Her story is in Positive Leftist News. That's going to come out on the 1st, so spoiler alert for that. But then when I was looking up more footage to put in the video for it, then the news story came up today. So yeah. What do I think of scientific Marxism describing itself as scientific? In my mind, it's like, if you really want your ideology or your, political theory to not be seen as a religion, you probably shouldn't write about it as if it is like a law of nature, The other day I saw a Reddit post where someone was claiming the labor theory of value can't be empirically demonstrated. Would you stop being a socialist labor theory value if it was somehow proven wrong? I mean, how would you prove that something like economics, like something in that kind of like economics is wrong? Like, it's not even like I can't even imagine how you would empirically demonstrate whether or not the labor that goes into something changes its value to people. Like, I don't know. Economics seems typically to be the religion of spreading capitalism, so I think I'd be pretty skeptical. I don't really take most economists anyway, I don't really take them all that seriously, because they're more just the clergy of neoliberal capitalism than they are actual academics. Where are you getting this about anarchism? I don't think that's true at all. Okay. The main thing is that anarchism is based on having a few ideals, but it very much is not like it has shown itself to manifest very differently in different places. And theoretically, the way that somebody's emphasis, like anarcho, anarcho-communists and anarcho-syndicalists and anarcho-feminists and queer anarchists and all those kinds of different groups are not mutually exclusive and based on, addressing the needs of different communities and different situations and different types of people. And that when it's put together, there's no Marx or Lenin of, we need to have a revolution, we need to have a vanguard party, we need to create a dictatorship of the proletariat, we need to liquidate the kulaks, we need to invade Hungary, we need to kill a whole bunch of Estonians, and then we can have communism. But there isn't really like a set of steps like that. That's sort of like that's like in a more Marxist theoretical understanding of political change. Like, it's more of like based on like situations and like direct action and about setting up mutual aid networks and stuff like that. But like, there's no Lenin who's written great deals about how many people we need to kill in order to make anarchism work. About all of the people that need to be liquidated and removed from the universe, so that we can have our perfect society. There's none of that. Specifically, because anarchism is a radically anti-authoritarian ideology, which means that there is a few people who are highly respected, but nobody who is like, the authoritative person on it. Is that fucking Lenin dude? What a proper dickhead. Ruined socialism with his dipshit reinterpretation of the dictatorship of the proletariat. Lenin needs a slap, I tell you what. I mean, Lenin has some value. His writings have value. But yeah, like, the sort of like blind worship of the people who set up the Soviet Union is a bit of a pox on the left, in my opinion. Let's see. I heard that the race in New York City closing with Garcia and Adams in the top two. Okay, thank you for the $5 super chat, John. I'm not really following much of the New York City election. I probably should be, but I haven't really been following it. So... Don Capia has a good series of different ideas of how anarchy would work. Yes, he does. They're his ideas. They're very much like stuff that he's reasoned out himself. And they are ways that it could work. But like, in my mind, a lot of times anarchism will work the way that it will work in whatever situation you're in. I always think of stuff like how in Rojava they have like their entire dispute resolution system is based on the sort of tribal, like, familial systems that exist in the region, and that's because they're trying to find a way to do restorative justice in a way that works for that current cultural context. And it's like, okay, like that to me makes a lot of sense. It's their culture, and that's how anarchism would work for them. And anarchism that works for me is going to be different in different places and everything. The best part is that it'll not be monolithic anywhere. In bullshit jobs, Graeber argues that the caring and service industry jobs won't be automated for a very long time because people just prefer to have actual humans doing those jobs, i.e. you wouldn't have a robot care worker. Do I buy that? Yeah. A lot of times, like a lot of those caring, especially the caring sector, where like the labor is emotional, like we're close to automating a lot of jobs. Automating away emotional labor feels very far away. Like, it would be hard to automate away. Like, you could automate away a lot of the work of a nurse, but like to have someone who is like there for you in a crisis or something like that, or like the sort of like need for human connection, like we haven't been able to automate away those yet. Now, I do think that that could happen, but be interested in hearing my thoughts on Chomsky's Biden or bust running this last election cycle. I mean, I guess the only thing I could say that would be important to mention about people like Noam Chomsky specifically is that his first introduction to politics was writing about Hitler in the present tense. And he had so like I can see the threat of like resurgent fascism if it was overstated. I don't know. I'm not gonna answer that one way or the other. But yeah, like I could understand somebody who is in Noam Chomsky's position thinking that way. Not only the dealing with the fact that like you had a freaking president who was literally talking to like groups, like criminal groups of neo-Nazis, telling them to stand back and stand by and shit. But also you had like, you have to also know that like there's a lot of people who came into left-wing politics like in the last 5 years, 6 years, basically like since 2015. And there's a lot of times the people who are like super purists, like the people who are like Bernie Sanders is the most spineless politician in America in the Democratic Party, or like the people who are like shitting on Noam Chomsky, a fucking like icon of leftist thought for the last like the majority of a century at this point, don't realize that for the majority of the like last century, the left has been on the back foot and has been having to make a lot of moderate their expectations and make more choices about harm reduction rather than actually pushing for stuff that they want. The thing, though, is that, and this is a good thing, the left has become resurgent in the last few years because of things like the Bernie Sanders campaign, because of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the Labour Party. There is now like a distinguished, differentiated, actual left wing in a lot of Western countries that didn't exist before, or if they did, they were, they were of marginal political power. And so a lot of people, who have spent their entire lives negotiating levels of defeat would argue for something like, Biden or bust or whatever. And then there are people who their entire political life has existed when there was huge DSA and when there was like, people like Bernie Sanders running for president and like that kind of stuff. And because that's their entire experience, their standards are a lot higher, and they should be. I only can like speak to this because I kind of like ride right in the middle, where I got into politics in the early 2000s when like there was functionally no left wing. There was no like the first time that that you go through a Democratic primary, probably in 2024, where there is literally no good candidate. They are all bad. That's going to probably moderate your enthusiasm quite a bit. Because that's sort of the realities of being a leftist and in the late capitalist period. So I think in many ways it's a clash between two different groups of people. Because even like the person who was like really on his ass was like Breonna Joy Gray, and Breonna Joy Gray got into like politics and like what if I remember correctly, she only like started really caring about politics like relatively recently, even though she's older than me. She like I'm trying to remember, like she was like a lawyer for a while, and then like kind of got involved in leftist politics while being a lawyer, and sort of left the profession to become a journalist and stuff. But I don't know. But it's like just an example. The history of the gold standard is the one thing that sets up Polanyi's great transformation book. Ever think about doing a book on video on the gold standard? Well, thank you for the money, Dave. I appreciate it. Super chat. I feel like I might. Have I entertained? I feel like I have thought about doing the gold standard. I've done like stuff about the effects of the gold standard, but I haven't like done like a straight up gold standard video. Don't know why. Can I just say that I really appreciate what you do? Aw. Thank you, Echo. I really like how I always feel like I learn something really important every time you stream. Well, that's really kind. And it's a welcome break from all the people I watch who seem to be debating fascists lately. Yeah, I don't debate fascists. I tend to not debate at all because I think debate streams are kind of, of little actual benefit to the world or to the cause. Do I think nonviolent revolution can succeed in achieving an anarchist future, or do you think that violence is inevitable in any revolution? I'm just wondering, since I utterly despise violence. I do too. I do think in my mind, I think that if you're to go by look at a way a Marxist idea would see the way the world's changing, you would say there will be a moment where there will be drastic changes, revolution really, and at the end of the day, there is no way that power is going to be taken away from the people who hold it willingly. Even like things like elections are not going to be the way to fix it. But I do think that it's like one of those things where when violence comes, you will know, and when the time for that kind of action is warranted, the world will look a lot different than it does right now. Because there's a lot of factors involved. Don't like Brianna Joy Gray, but I'm glad she's a leftist. Well, yeah. I used to think that she was fine. And then she started defending Jimmy Dore and started covering for apparently Virgil Texas as a groomer. I didn't know that. And has sort of not addressed that, even though they're podcasting together. And I was like, okay, this is questionable. New leftists need to get used to not achieving much. Well, the stakes are a lot higher now. I mean, Reagan sucked, but no one thought politics would end all life. That, first of all, no. The stakes might be a lot higher now in some ways, in the ways of the climate and stuff. Yes, but Reagan, there were a lot of people who thought that Reagan was going to cause the end of the world. Reagan was taking a relative time of peace in the Cold War and was we need to destroy the Soviet Union. And he almost caused a nuclear war on several occasions in the first term of his presidency. So, leftists back then were very much oh fuck, Ronald Reagan could fucking end the world. I'm not even saying that new leftists have to get used to not achieving. It's just that you have to understand where people who are sort of older in the movement are coming from. And also maybe just have a little bit more respect for people who have been fighting for leftist causes for Noam Chomsky's been fighting for leftist causes since before my parents were born. I think he deserves a little bit more respect than a lot of the people who learned about Marx, who learned about Marx when Bernie Sanders ran for president. I think this have some respect. These people have dedicated massive decades, their entire fucking career to this stuff. And done the best they could with what they had. And, sometimes they're not going to be as as ready for the same things as you are, because they come from a politics that's a political climate that was very different, and it's kind of weird to think that we can ask for more. Did you hear about Friendly Jordy's thing where the producer was arrested by anti-terror police? No, I don't even know who Friendly Jordy's is. Was it JFK who stopped the gold standard? No, it was Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was the one who got rid of the gold standard. Now, it was like not all at once. Like, basically ever since FDR, the U.S. had been drifting off of the gold standard. Like, the amount of fractional reserve that they had to have, like the amount, like, banks used to have like, way back in the day, they used to have enough gold bullion that everybody who had accounts with them had to come in, and if they wanted $1, you had to be able to give them $1's worth of gold, or whatever it was. So they had to have, like, enough gold to cover. And then they went to what's called fractional reserve banking, which was sort of this thing that was kind of put in by FDR, basically. Which was like, they don't have to have all of the gold to cover all of the dollars that they're giving out, but they have to have, like, a percentage. And that percentage was going down over time. And Richard Nixon just was like, decoupled it all together. That's basically like, yeah. Who the fuck is Virgil Texas? He was the host. He was one of the hosts of Chapo Trap House, and then left the show to do another podcast with Brianna Joy Gray called Bad Faith. And then it got reported, I think, like maybe a couple weeks ago, like maybe earlier this month, that he was grooming a 16-year-old. Yeah. Mold up. Yeah. How did I meet Mildred? He reached out to me. Yeah, when Thought Slime was just getting started, like I found Thought Slime very, very early, like when he only had like maybe like 100 subscribers or something like that. And then, I guess his wife pushed him to reach out to me. They weren't married at the time. But yeah, he found out that I was following him on Twitter, and he messaged me out of the blue asking to get coffee, and we got coffee, and we had a really good time. And then we got drinks, and then like he joined my D&D game, and basically then his career took off. So I've been along for the ride. But basically, I think the main thing was, there was this very brief time, I think like back in like 2016, 2017, where I was running a podcast called YouTubers United. And it was a podcast about growing a YouTube channel that was not trying to sell you something. That was the whole idea of the thing. And it was fun. And it was really, it was like, it didn't run for that long, but I guess they were watching it. Ugh. Have I shared thoughts on the 700 plus indigenous graves found around the school? The only American learning of this horror a few weeks ago. Yeah, it's one of those things that it's something that in Canada has been known about for a very long time, but nobody's really talked about. And the discovery of these mass graves is sort of like making explicit something that we knew, but we didn't have like confirmation of. I'm going to make a video about the residential school system later in July. So I'll probably have some more nuanced thoughts on that. But in a lot of ways, this is like a thing that we knew about that was like, we had it's just like, this is like a real way that we're having like a stronger conversation about it. And it's leading to a lot of things happening in Canada that are kind of similar to how things happened during Black Lives Matter. Like now we're having like a lot of moments where we're like talking about like renaming streets and getting rid of statues and like those kinds of things where we were not having that conversation as much before. What are my thoughts on cryptocurrency? Do you think the thing of the future will or will it fail utterly? It will fail utterly. Currency as currency as a thing only really can exist with the use of violence in the state. And without violence in the state, it's never going to be a currency. I'm going to make a video on cryptocurrency in August, so hold tight for that. Okay. Remember I told you a celestial event killing all the adults in the U.S. and you said it would probably destroy the country? Would left-wing movements finally rise up without being crushed if the U.S. collapsed? I mean, it would definitely be more likely. You would definitely have more like socialist governments become successful. And, that success would build on other successes and things like that. So I do think that if not overnight, it would definitely lead to global politics moving in a more leftward direction, yes. It's not time he, him, or he, she. I did not know about any of the stuff that was in that video that came out last week, and I haven't really had a conversation with him since. So I don't know what's changed, and as far as I know, he still goes by he, him, and we're gonna have our first D&D game since that video came out tomorrow, and I imagine we'll have to have some conversation about it because everyone still calls him by his old name, so we'll have to. I don't know what he's going to be doing with it. I don't know what I don't really know that much about what's going on, so we will see. Have I met Thoughtline's wife? Yes. Yeah, a few times. She's very nice. Thoughtline driving me for almost a week now. Is Matt a dead name now? I could not tell you. I haven't had much more of a conversation with him this past week. Then I texted him a meme, and that was it. that's the entire back and forth we've had. Oh no, he texted back saying LOL. So that's the entirety of the conversation we had. We haven't talked about that video or what it means for interpersonal communication yet at all. So like I said, I think I'll find out tomorrow. That's the next time I'm gonna talk to him on the phone. I want cryptocurrency to fail because it's so dominant because there's a shit ton of energy. Yeah. Are you impressed with how liberal President Biden is choosing to run the country and least promoting and pushing very strong, effective programs to help a lot of people, not just one side? What? I'm not impressed by Joe Biden at all. Biden has, in many ways, Biden's, presidency has been, close to indistinguishable from, any give or take liberal president. And a lot of stuff that he's done a lot of stuff that Donald Trump straight up did and people called out Donald Trump on, and then when he did it nobody said a word. So like Biden's not that, his politics aren't that different from Trump's. It's like, it's a weird thing to say, but like a lot of their difference is in aesthetic and language, which is like not nothing, but it's also like, for example, like Donald Trump wanted to make Black Lives Matter and Antifa terrorist groups. And everyone was like, this is the worst thing ever. This is the end of protest. This is like horrible, anti-civil rights, like all this kind of stuff. And then Joe Biden passes a bill while making a bunch of white power groups into terrorist organizations, also adds Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And nobody says fucking shit about it. Like, so, Do you guys play 5e? Yes, we do. Have unmarked graves been found at boarding schools in the U.S.? Apparently, because of all the mass graves being uncovered in Canada, they're going to start an investigation into it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I would not be surprised. Are you a crafting DM or more theater of the mind? So right now, we're just all on virtual tabletops right now. I used to be very theater of the mind, but one of the things that I've kind of gotten into in the last little bit is more miniatures and set stuff. Because even though, like, I think this is... I'm sorry, everybody. I know everyone hates when I talk about D&D. But, like, in my mind, like, I think theater of the mind is more flexible and allows for more fun narrative stuff to happen. But everybody who I run games for, they say that they prefer grid and maps and miniatures. And so I'm not going to... Like that, if they find that more fun, then I'm not going to tell them no. If you don't know, shouldn't you switch to they as a recursion? I mean, I guess, but I haven't been told of any pronoun changes or anything like that. Is there anything else you could tell us about Thoughts on his wife? Nope. I'm not at liberty to say anything about her. She obviously does not want the internet knowing about her, so I will respect her wishes. It is like polite to consider it a dead name by now, but also like but I also know Mildred close enough to know that like that kind of stuff is doesn't, I don't know. You know what? I'll drop that conversation. But he's very chill about that kind of stuff. I mean, most people are if you're doing it accidentally. Have I heard about John McAfee? Yeah, I did. But I was saying he killed himself to own the libs, which is quite insane. What else has Biden done that Trump would do? Let me find. There was a really great thing I found. The big thing is, like, he increased the military budget. He just announced a whole bunch of more funding for police officers. He's maintained the concentration camps on the southern border. Like, is still discouraging people who are seeking completely legal political asylum. No $15 minimum wage. No, like, what's it called? The clawbacks of the checks. Like all of that stuff is it's only been 1 year. It hasn't even been a year. How long have I played D&D? I have been playing since 2017. I played like one like weekend sort of like game where we played for a few days in like a cabin for like a week, like a long weekend, and that was in 2011. But then I didn't play again until 2017, and I've been playing since 2017. The campaign that I've been in with Thought Slime is that campaign started in 2018. It's in August. It'll be 3 years old, but it's almost over. I think it'll make it till August. I don't think it's going to run out of juice quite yet, but we're getting very close to the end of it. TSSRs prefer to not. He said he prefers not to be referred by they them pronouns in some videos. That is true, and also, like, I don't know. I've known the guy for years, and he's always been like always introduced himself by he him pronouns, and I'm not going to change it until he tells me otherwise. I think that's the smart way to go about it. Interested in my thoughts regarding the likeliness of the USA collapsing into fascism in earnest, or just a socioeconomic collapse in general. Be really I don't like. I mean, the sort of like high fever mark of like Trump mania has hit with the 2020 election, but. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we need to see what's happening, but like, things that I think could cause a lot of like political instability in America are looming around the corner. Like, for example, the USA basically keeps. The USA currently has a moratorium on evictions because of COVID, and every time it's just about to expire, they kick it down the road by like another few months. Hoping that, you know, the economy will recover enough that it won't lead to like mass evictions. But all signs indicate that like there's a lot of things like, for example, hunger, like food insecurity is starting to go up in America, and like drastically because of COVID. And also that if the moratorium ever ends, there's probably going to be as much as 3% of the U.S. population evicted, which would increase the homeless population by like can you imagine 3% of Americans going homeless? That is, and already like with people who were unemployed or who are laid off because of COVID, led to the Black Lives Matter protests in the last summer being much more intense. You have you increase that, and you like have like a slow economic recovery, which like a lot of people who are like financial analysts are suspecting that like America is kind of in a situation where it's kind of financially against the wall, because like one of the things that happens, right, is that if you want to speed up economic growth, you make interest rates lower for loans, which means that you can borrow money easier. And when borrowing money is easier, it means that people start more businesses and the economy grows faster. Sometimes, though, you don't want it to grow too fast, and you raise interest rates in order to slow things down so that it grows at sort of like a reasonable rate. The thing, though, is that America's economy is not growing very fast, and interest rates are at rock bottom, which means that their mechanism for trying to get the economy to keep growing is at its absolute lowest setting, and they can't lower it anymore. And so, I mean, they could probably lower it. They could go into like negative interest rates and weird stuff like that. But that doesn't happen very often. But like these kinds of like the economy is like the American economy is is poised for some major economic collapse. And there's like, cases of people, like there's a lot of people borrowing money that they don't have to invest in stock markets, that they like all of this kind of stuff that is all signs that there's going to be a big economic collapse. And you pair that with like the mass evictions and the economic depression that's caused by COVID. And you could see America, like if something is it, like these are all things that could happen, not things that will happen. So everybody who's already catastrophizing, slow your horses. But like these are all things that could happen, and if something isn't done to intervene, then they could go pretty poorly. And I don't know what happens but economic instability and food insecurity and like those kinds of things, those and high unemployment, that is all the kinds of things that lead to political instability. Luckily, actually, unemployment's actually kind of low, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know anything about the police crime sentencing and courts bill, so I can't really speak anything on it. If that's the case, yeah. Do I live in Canada or the United States? I live in Canada. This comes up a lot because, John, I am Canadian. I grew up in Canada. I was born in Canada. I live in Canada now. But I am married to an American expat. And on top of that, I am my area of expertise is U.S. history and American cultural studies. So I am... my study and my interests are very much focused on studying the United States and American history, at the same time, I was born and raised in Canada. What do I think is worse, electoralism or vanguardism? Ooh, spicy. So both of those are hardline ideologies that are focused on doing something that will accomplish nothing. If electoralism worked, they wouldn't have elections. If vanguardism requires a sort of critical mass of people and a state that is in a weak enough position that it would actually work, which, most advanced Western democracies are not in that situation right now. So they're both, so I feel like in many ways they are both ways to opt out of doing the direct action and stuff that needs to be done in order to change material conditions right now. They're both like kind of ways of kicking the can down the road. Like, we can't do leftism until we get our big bearded revolution, or we can't do anything until we elect the right people into office. Supreme Court picks a sufficient reason to pick Biden over Trump. I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, who knows? Like, at this point, like, the conservative control of the Supreme Court is pretty ironclad for decades to come. So this is more like whether or not the Supreme Court stays conservative for like 30 years or 35 years at this point. The other thing, too, about the mass evictions, and this is the scary part, is that hedge funds, their next big investment plan is that they're waiting for this large eviction to happen because there's a whole bunch of big like investment funds that want to basically buy all of these houses as soon as they go on the market. Because when you have mass evictions, the price of houses is going to plummet briefly. And they're going to snatch up all of the real estate and then rent it out and be landlords. And that will like rocket up the price of housing, and then because basically it will basically like completely eradicate the concept of home ownership for young people anymore. And on top of that, it will. And on top of that, then because they'll have this kind of critical mass, they'll be able to raise rents, which was sort of like a thing. USA undergo a USSR-like economic collapse. The USSR's collapse was long and drawn out, and had to do with like inflexibility and just like an inability to really change the structure of things, which the United States does have a lot of issues with. But the USSR, like the thing that really like knocked the dominoes and got the dominoes all going, was essentially opening up like loosening up the authoritarian grip on the state, and that led to like a bunch of radical movements. And like it basically like led to the all of the political movements that were just like cracking apart the USSR. I don't know if there's going to be I can't think of like an American equivalent of like glasnost and perestroika, What's the weather like up there? The Texas unreasonably cool and wet here in Texas. It is. It's been hot and humid, but also we've been getting like thunderstorms almost daily. So we're like in this. I don't know. Here where I am right now, we're getting like, it's just like mix. It's going between being like jungle hot and like humid. Like I think today with the humidex, it was like in the high 30s, and then thunderstorms, but like really short thunderstorms, like 5-minute thunderstorms, and it's supposed to be like that for like a whole like the rest of the week. Tristan's an Americanologist. Yeah, the term is actually Americanist, but I appreciate Americanologist. That's much more fun to say. Do you have live streams every Tuesday night? Yes, from 7 until 9. Last week you said people probably wouldn't rise up against a GOP dictatorship as long as they're comfortable. Suppose the GOP dictatorship gave UBI to all cishet white men and women. Would that give them the support they need to oppress underprivileged people without being toppled? I don't think so. The thing is that the U.S., like, you couldn't just rely on cishet white men and women for American instability or for political stability. The U.S.'s non-white population is too large for that, and it's growing. So unless they did something positively genocidal to keep like people from like other racial groups from growing, then I don't think it would not be enough, I would say. Okay. Can you read the article about the buying of houses? I'd have to find it. It's happening in Canada too, but to a smaller scale. Okay. Americanist sounds like you like America. Well, that's really funny because my first master's degree is in American Studies. And American Studies programs were set up around the world as a sort of like Cold War program to try and make experts in the United States who were like pro-America in all of these countries. Like the first big American Studies departments were like in Germany and stuff. And Canada, I actually was in the first American Studies master's program in Canada. There are very few of us, because the program is pretty much collapsed now at Western, which means that I don't even know if you can get an American Studies master's degree in Canada anymore. So there's probably not a ton of us around, which is interesting. Yeah. But the thing is that a lot of these American Studies departments turned into a bunch of people like me who sit around and criticize the U.S., so it did not have the intended effect. Does Bernie Sanders do a political disservice when he runs for president as a Democrat, and then as soon as he loses, he's back to the label of independent and registered as an independent? No. I think him being separate from the Democratic Party gives him freedoms that a lot of Democrats don't get. How likely do you think non-white genocide is in the U.S.? I don't think that I think that if there would be multiple steps that would need to happen before something like that would be conceivable at this point. Not saying that it's impossible, but it would be like what's it called? Pretty low chance at this point. All right, let me try to answer these two questions I've got in the thing. Is the American empire in decline? Would they burn the world before their empire ends? I mean, they are kind of literally burning the world with fossil fuels, but yeah, the U.S. is. The U.S. is. I don't know if it's in decline, but it definitely has a lot of deep structural issues that they're not addressing that are getting worse, and they are running into issues of growing competition from other major geopolitical powers, especially China, which we'll probably start seeing soon. China's already kind of gotten started on this of like really challenging U.S. hegemonic supremacy around the world. And as more countries realize that they can stand up to the U.S. and actually not suffer for it, like if you end up in situations like where countries stand up to the U.S. and then China comes in to like help them out, and they don't end up like in trouble or like having their entire economy fucked up or something like that, that gets more interesting. That is like a sign that like the United States is sort of like eclipsed and it's sort of on the downward swing. China does have a lot of its own issues too. Yes, that is true. China's got a lot of issues with the fact that it knows that its explosive economic growth is unsustainable, that they have changed the economic realities of the country for a huge amount in a very short amount of time. And one of the ways they did that was by ingesting a huge dose of capitalism, which it runs into friction with their centralized communist government. And at the same time, it is a country that has a dominant ethnic group in the term of like the Han Chinese, and has a lot of people in the periphery that are not enjoying all of the benefits of this Chinese miracle. And a lot of their attempts to economically develop these regions come with a lot of cultural imperialism, which is an issue. But it is powerful enough now that countries do seem like they're able to stand up to the U.S.'s power. And it'd be interesting to see things like if the G7 results in a situation where people are more interested in talking to Xi Jinping than they are to the U.S. president. And I don't know how Americans... The thing is that America is so built upon it being the unquestioned masters of the world that I don't know how American culture would handle decline. Like, think about how Britain handled its decline from being the great world power, right? There was like... It did, like, what's it called? It was not easy. People still haven't gotten over it, you know? And I do wonder what that will be like when it's the United States' turn. What kind of cultural changes will happen. But probably looking to, like, what Britain went through as its empire started collapsing would probably be a good way to get started. In a physics context, living systems require an energy gradient, and thermodynamics drives all systems to equilibrium, so a living system is temporarily striving for disequilibrium or some kind of asymmetry. Can capitalism be seen as an economic organism seeking the asymmetrical accumulation of wealth? So we are the entropic death of capitalism, because that sounds cool as fuck. Interesting metaphor, for sure. I'm sure AOC is going to run next time for president. Is she someone that you would vote for? Yeah. Yeah. AOC is probably, like, if you think about the kind of current crop of American politicians who could be the sort of leader of the left in electoral politics in the U.S. in U.S. politics, AOC is probably the best one that they could use. I personally prefer the politics of Rashida Tlaib, but I think that she doesn't have the same sort of cachet that the United States that AOC does, and I think that everyone would agree with that. And as far as like her being like someone just said, she'd probably disappoint me. I mean, no more than President Sanders would have. Let's be honest. But AOC has a cultural cachet. She's an avowed socialist. She's a DSA member, which is really good. But at the same time, she also appeals to liberals for some reason. There is like a cohort of like libs who like her for one reason or another. And if a socialist is going to if the socialist is going to be at the top of the presidential ticket for the Democratic Party and somehow win the election, they're going to need to somehow reach out and get a coalition of liberals to vote for them. And AOC might be able to do that. Because a lot of liberals would just be like, oh, liberals would love the fact that she's got a good sassy Twitter presence. They would love the idea of electing the first woman president and the first Latinx president. And then what's it called? Then she can get elected. The thing is, though, you'll get the whole. As soon as the liberals catch wind and AOC actually I imagine that there are a lot of people who are working very hard to try and rein in AOC, which I think is happening. She's sort of not been as radical as she was in the past. And also to try and, if she were to run for president, they would try everything they could to stop her, and they would probably try to ruin her reputation somehow. But she's not the perfect candidate, but she's a better candidate than any other ones that I know of at the moment. So, yeah. I can't think of another person who could realistically run for president and win right now, who's actually a left-wing politician. When it comes to left-wing politics in America, you don't have very many choices of high-profile candidates, and AOC is as good as any. She would be as good as Bernie Sanders, possibly better, at least on policy positions. The only thing that we'll see what happens when it comes to when the rubber hits the road, but. My guess is that AOC is probably more likely to be tapped by a more progressive-leaning liberal presidential candidate as a way to sort of put a fig leaf out to the left. That I feel like is a more likely option if in 2024 we end up with a whole new presidential ticket. But and that's only if the left is a large enough contingency that they feel like they have to choose a left-wing presidential or left-wing vice presidential candidate in order to appease them. So, which you think is more likely, my country pulling away from the U.S. or yours? I mean, the U.K. is kind of short on allies right now, so my guess is that Canada would probably be more likely to pull away. We're more dependent on the U.S. for trade than the U.K. is, but Canada has already been planning a long-term strategy of getting away from dependence on the U.S. economically. While the UK basically farted in the face of all of its allies and now is probably desperate for whatever sort of strong agreement it can make with the United States for trade at this point. That'd be my guess. All right, let's see if we got any more questions in the question form. So the thing at this point is I can't, when people are talking about presidential candidates, I can't think of a left-wing politician that is high profile enough in America, that is of the right age, that would have a reasonable chance of at least even being able to contend in the Democratic primaries and actually win. Like, probably like when I think about like people who could run for president who have good politics, Nina Turner, she might be able to do it. She has garnered a little bit of ill will with liberals, and the Democratic establishment has already shown that they're willing to throw a lot of money to try and stop her. It doesn't mean that she will win, but or it doesn't mean that she won't win regardless. But it does mean that, like, you know, if Nina Turner were to run for president, they would use all the same kind of shit they used against Bernie against her, which she could power through, definitely. And like, I'm not like lying. Like, Nina Turner is amazing. Like, I'm not like trying to say that she's a bad candidate, and she probably could do this. I don't know if she's as high profile as AOC is right now. She's better on policy, that's for sure. And if they were to both run, I'd probably prefer Nina Turner over AOC. But I don't think Nina Turner has her eyes on the White House quite yet. When it comes to people currently sitting in Congress, I like I like Rashida Tlaib. She seems to like have, like, out of all of like what her and Ilhan Omar are like the two members of the quote squad that seem to have the most, like, earnest, actual good politics, or who are at least they are left-wing politicians who are also like strong enough there in their convictions. Like, I do think that AOC, it's because she's like, she's pretty young and she's pretty new, that like, well, they're all new, but like she seems like a little bit more impressionable. Like, it seems like AOC can still be bullied by the Democrats to not like on like when push comes to shove, she backs down sometimes on things and takes stances that I'm not like the biggest fan of, especially when it came to like Venezuela and stuff. But yeah. Hey, Marmaduke Scarlet, thank you much for the $7.99 Aussie dollars. Thank you for all them dollary dues. Got to get on with the day, but love your return. Oh yeah, I guess it's like morning over there. With the UK having farted on its allies, do you see an attempt to reinvigorate the Commonwealth? Yeah, somebody already pointed out that there's this whole program called CANS UK, which is an attempt to try and make a sort of like European Union, but just white British settler colonies. If a Democratic left-leaning person became the Democratic nominee, do you think there would be a reverse Lincoln Project type grift, especially at Democrats whoever the GOP nominee is? I think so, especially if the Republicans, I don't think this is going to happen, but if the Republicans take the lesson from Donald Trump to be that they need to, tamp down on the open fascism thing, like if a Marco Rubio or something was the candidate, I do think that there would be like a reverse Lincoln Project type thing for sure. Oh, we do have some questions. Let's see. Why am I so dang cool? Well, Malcolm, I don't know. It's mostly the fan, because it's actually very hot. America's democracy was based on the Roman Republic. Do you think that some of America's problems are just echoes of the decline of the Roman Republic/Empire? I can't help but look at what's going on and feel like we've been here before. This is a comparison that's been made quite a bit, and I would say that the context of what caused the Roman collapse is very different from what caused the U.S. collapse. Just because they were sort of inspired by like the Roman Republic and Italian like city-states, I do think that I don't think that the same things are in play. Thoughts on Keiko Fujimori in Peru, who is now asking for an international audit for the election, who was that was observed to be free and fair. I mean, yeah, she's going to the right-wing playbook, right? She's going to the right-wing playbook to undermine elections in Latin America. She's just going to join Juan Guaido and I don't remember what the weird president they had in Bolivia for a year was, but the three of them can hang out together. Do you think the Greys found around the country have a chance of reigniting the shutdown Canada movement of winter 2020? Oh man, that'd be nice. I don't think a military coup in the U.S. is most likely. Do you think there's a change of if a super progressive non-white VP ascended to the presidency? Could possibly. Who knows? That's so much speculation at this point. Wouldn't countries like China and orgs like the rest of NATO step in to fuck up socialist countries if the U.S. fell? Maybe, but like, I don't know if China would go to bat to try and tamp down. Like China's international policy is that unlike the U.S., they don't give a shit what kind of politics you have as long as you're good with trading with China. So I don't think China would be like ideologically driven to maintain capital like that. And NATO is essentially a series of allies all focused around the United States. So I don't know if NATO would actually... I don't know if NATO would have much staying power if the U.S. were to, like, you know, leave central prominence. Yeah, Jean Anez, yeah. That was what I was thinking of. Roman Republic partly fell due to economic inequality. It was definitely due to like class inequality. Like, didn't have to do with like the fact that Rome just had like a bunch of territory, but didn't like most of them weren't citizens, and so just like a huge class of people who had no say. And I don't know. Rome was a very different place than today. That's for sure. Do you think the UK could end up being a big trading partner of China? Possibly. I don't know if that's a thing the UK is getting into, but I could see it happening. The UK is short on friends these days. Have you heard of the Robert E. Lee Prager video? I have heard of it. I haven't seen it. There we go. Alrighty. I give myself a sore throat every single week doing this stream. It's so much talking. Opium War 3. Oh, God. If the UK tried to open up like stronger relationships with China, they would definitely be the lesser partner in that. Would that be better or worse than buddying up to the US? I mean, the U.S. would be very angry, and that would cause a huge political upset. Like the U.S. would do a bunch of stuff to try and diplomatically isolate the U.K. It'd be a shit show, that's for sure. And because it'd be interesting because the U.K. speaks the same language as the United States, which would make for interesting propaganda. The U.S. is going to have a lot of people die of exposure next month after the moratorium if we don't do something. It's true. Oh, boy. Interesting propaganda. Yeah, well, the thing is, like, I can't think of like a country that is English speaking that has been diplomatically isolated from the United States. I can't think of a country where that's happened, which would result. I don't know what that would like, because part of the effort to try and get America or try to get the UK back would be soft power propaganda effort, and I don't know what they would do. What if the USA joined the European Union? I don't know how to answer that. The US almost has the same population as the European Union. It would be like half of the European Union. More likely, people are thinking like of the... There was this article a while back that Canada should join the European Union. That would be bananas. New Zealand briefly in the Cold War. Oh, interesting. Wait, did New Zealand align with the Soviet Union? What? Seattle reached 116 degrees this weekend. Millions will die in the U.S. soon. Holy moly! Yeah, I don't know if this heat dome thing that's happening right now is like, obviously it's going to be more normal in the future. I don't know if this is the like if this is going to be the big event of the summer, or if this is just the beginning of like a very brutal summer. What about a North American Union? I mean, that's a thing that people have considered, sort of like tying NAFTA back together into something stronger than what NAFTA was. I don't. I think the main thing about it that would be an issue is that Canada's like long-term geopolitical strategy, or Canada's geopolitical strategy recently has been to create stronger alliances with other countries to decrease its dependence on the United States. And I also know that Mexico has a program that's very similar to that. And so Mexico and Canada are trying to diversify in order to be less reliant on the U.S. So the idea of like the U.S. and Canada and Mexico coming closer together would be quite it'd be like quite against the sort of the thrust of where they're going as countries. Do I think that that a military would be able to gin up a coup against Deb Haaland? I mean, at that point, hasn't like so much of the government died that like the U.S. would be in political chaos anyway? This heat is intense, and we're not getting it. Like we're it's hot here, but it's nowhere close to what's going on the West Coast. It's absolutely brutal over there. I don't even know how. I don't even know what I would do in such a situation. What do I think of the phrase "America is a third world country with a Gucci belt"? It's not bad, because the thing is that the United States is first and foremost a military that has basically it has absolutely zero concern for its people, but it has such a powerful military that it doesn't really need to. And so yeah, the US just is obnoxiously rich but puts everything into weapons. So why does the fact that we speak the same language as them make propaganda harder? I don't think it would make it harder. I think it would make it more interesting. The heat domes occurring is normal, but their duration is caused by global climate change. Oh, thank you, April, and thank you for the super chat. We've been having showers with 100-degree weather. I'm worried that some tornadoes are about to happen. Yeah, we've had quite a wacky tornado season here in Ontario. That seems to be a thing that's going to be more common as climate change becomes more of a thing. This weather we're having right now is like, I have never seen anything like this before. Thunderstorms for a whole week, like that's new to me. And this weather is not unheard of, but it's also pretty like, you know, it doesn't get. I have never seen it hotter than the situation we're in right now. Why, like how they handle propagandizing in Latin countries. Well, it's just like more like the thing that I find interesting, that would be really interesting about like if some weird fucked up scenario where the UK became a China adjacent ally, like Iran and stuff, where the US is trying to delegitimize the UK and like, you know, trying to diplomatically isolate them or whatever. And then at the same time, like, the UK is a pretty powerful cultural like thing in itself, and is also in the same language as the United States. So like, what would happen if you had like American TV shows that were like where British people were the bad guys in every situation, and then like you have Doctor Who doing the same thing and talking about the U.S. being an evil empire, like I don't know, like the cultural propaganda like between those two because they speak the same language would be quite interesting. Think we'll have high storms like in the Stormlight Archive? I have no idea what you're talking about. Did you see the mice plague in Australia? No. We're having like a plague here too. We're having like a worm plague or like a caterpillar plague. There's some sort of moth apparently in Ontario that is just having way more babies than they were before, and it's just like overpowering things. Could they just stop importing our shows, or would the internet make that pointless? It would make it pretty difficult, that's for sure. What are these caterpillars I'm thinking about? Gypsy moths are what they're called. Not the greatest name, but yeah, that's what they're called. Do I have AC? Yes, I do. Thank God. Superstorms are an increasing likelihood. Like, what do you mean by a superstorm? Like, I'd be curious if that has a definition. Yeah, we are definitely going to get wacky weather. That's true. Suppose powerful geomagnetic storms were a lot more common. Like, suppose something like the Carrington event. I don't know what the Carrington... Oh, yeah, that's like, I think 100 years ago. Happened every several days instead of every few centuries. You think the digital revolution would have happened if the sun kept frying unshielded transistors every other week? Definitely think it'd be a lot slower. That's for sure. Free Derek Chauvin? Who the fuck are you? Be gone. You are too baked. All right. My AC is on the fritz. Oh boy. Not a good time. Glad you're joining us, Blender Bros. I started a bit over a year ago, doing mostly character modeling and sculpting. Yeah, I think I'm not very good at art, so we'll see if I can actually get very good at it. Is this live on Twitch as well? Yes. Remember the bomb cyclones that happened in the Midwest a couple of years ago? No. What was that? Are you surprised it got 22 years? No, they very much were like, let's, like, there was definitely a point where they were like, no, we're gonna say this is one of the bad apples, and then they were basically gonna throw him under the bus. So, I think that yeah, they were gonna throw the book at him, so that they can preserve. They definitely were like, we need to sacrifice Chauvin in order to maintain the legitimacy of policing. So. Hasn't broken more than 32 degrees. 32 degrees is still pretty hot. It's a lot cooler here now because it's nighttime, but yeah, this last few days has been unpleasant. How weird is the heat in Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver? Off the charts. Yeah. I hope that heat breaks soon. I feel really bad for the people in the West. In the UK, it's 21 degrees, but no one has AC. Would you prefer that? I've been told in the UK it's getting hotter in the summer, so I would prefer that we have our infrastructure for handling the heat than it being less hot, but us having nothing for managing it. It's GTA 6. Ontario's new medical chief author says that he won't support moving to stage step 3 ahead of schedule. Okay. Just looking at the news right now. Seeing there's anything I haven't covered. Severe thunderstorms bring down branches and dump heavy rain on Toronto and much of the GTA. Oof. Wow. Vancouver police respond to dozens of heat-related deaths. Oh, God. Okay, yeah. Someone who said that, like, there's a lot of people who are going to be in danger because of the heat. Yeah. I saw that, like, something in, like, it was, like, 52 degrees or something like that in Pakistan. And it was, like, the hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth. And, like, it was, like, this is literally hotter than human beings can tolerate. Like, you cannot... It was so hot that you actually can't go outside and walk. You would actually, like... No matter what you did, you would die of heat exhaustion. Basically, you could not do anything but stay and just try to keep yourself cold throughout whatever process possible. Ugh. It's going to be 20 degrees on Friday in Sydney in the middle of winter. Oh, boy. 42 degrees. Oh, this wasn't 42 degrees. This was 52 degrees. Like an unimaginable amount of heat. I don't even... And also, Pakistan gets, like... a lot of regions in Pakistan, especially this region that got hit with, like, the over-the-top thing... gets, like, unimaginable, like, has, like, intermittent electricity, which means that it was, they, like, our air conditioning units and stuff like that were also going to be on the fritz. Hey! One of my friends from high school's here. Hello, Martin. Nice of you to pop by. Better lesson would have been holding law accountable, but that's... Yeah, if it had led to, like, you know, defunding and, like, you know, getting rid of the police, that would be great, but... Oh, boy. Here we are. The last 10 minutes of the stream. It's currently 23, but it's also nighttime. Or it's getting to nighttime. Oh, yeah. The outside is currently green, which makes me think we're probably going to get another, like, something about the setting sun and the heat or the clouds has led to it being green. So this says we're going to have another thunderstorm soon. Yeah. The idea of, like, 50-degree weather, like, the thing is, like, this is going to be more and more common, and, like, there's going to be parts of the time when in the U.S., especially in the, like, in places like Arizona, it's going to be so hot that, like, not only can you not do anything, but, like, it'll be so hot that cars can't drive. It'll be so hot that, like, even air conditioners running on full blast will not be able to contain the heat, and it'll basically just be uninhabitable. Hey, Devin, thank you for the $5 super chat. Nice new video, buddy. Thank you. Much appreciated. Do you ever get the Northern Lights where you are? No. I'm way too far south. I'm in a part of Canada that, this small part of Canada that is actually further south than some parts in the U.S. clouds being green might be a tornado. I haven't gotten. Let me check my phone. I haven't gotten like a tornado warning or anything like that on my phone, so I think I'm good. Glad I made it for this. Thank you for the welcoming stream. Thank you, Pingu. Thank you for having such a fun to say name, Pingu Pongo. It's weird that where I live in Southern California, it's 68 degrees. It would have been hotter here. Yeah, you'd think. Minneapolis is north of Southern Ontario. Yep. I feel like we may need underground dwellings in some areas to beat the heat. Yeah, that might actually be true. Yeah. The other thing too is that the American Southwest is going to deal with the issue that their sources of water are all drying up. So it's not only going to be like that super hot, but also there's a lot of cities in the American Southwest that are in danger of losing their water supply. And that is a much more, that's a much harder thing to solve. Turns out maybe we probably shouldn't have built cities in the desert. That's just my thought. Maybe building, maybe having millions of people, just maybe having them all live in the desert was bad. It's based on a claymation show about penguins. Oh yeah, I know. I watched Pingu when I was like a little kid. All the prime farming land is probably heading to Canada. Yeah, which would be either very good for us or very bad for us, because the U.S. might start coming for our fresh water and our arable land. Will you do so that happen again now that the Rona is kind of becoming less prevalent? I mean, if anything, the Rona would have made it easier to do, but I'd have to hear from them to talk about doing the show again, really. What is my ideal temperature? I like fall temperature. Like, to me, like 15 degrees is comfortable. Which sounds like a crazy person thing to say, but I prefer like kind of like where it's a little bit cold. Coming for you think the U.S. might invade? I mean, we'd probably just give it up willingly, but they might. I don't know. That'd be like, you know, decades from now. They'll just say that they're liberating the Canadian people, yeah. I don't know, such a thing, like them turning on such a big ally would be a new thing for them. It'd be interesting to see what happened. I don't know how they would turn it around. But, yeah. Whew. Alright, how are we on time? Got about a minute left. So anyone's solve the heat issue in the desert by going underground. I don't know who Cobra Petty is, but good on him, I guess. Aren't there a bunch of extreme right-wing nutcases in Alberta or whatever that want to secede from Canada and join the U.S.? I mean, it's a minority of people, but there are Alberta separatists, yes. They're a small group of people at this point, but yeah, they do exist. There is that weird Western Independence Party where I don't even know where they are at this point. I think they're kind of like past their prime. They were more of a thing at the end of 2019. Now I think they're all just like weird QAnon anti-vaxxers or whatever. All right. Well, we are near the end of the stream, so I think we're going to have to find someone to raid. Let's go see who's streaming. So, I guess we can go see Irene. Alrighty. yeah, as we wrap up, I'm going to be seeing you guys next week. I'm going to get a haircut tomorrow, so say goodbye to this mop. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you guys next time.